The rain fell in merciless sheets across Misty Creek Valley, turning the fertile Montana soil into a quagmire of mud and broken dreams. My Thornwood stood alone in her ruined cornfield shoulders, squared against the downpour as she surveyed the devastation. Trampled stalks lay flattened in muddy rows, 3 months of backbreaking labor destroyed in a single night. The third time in 2 months, she drove her shovel into the sodden earth, with a quiet fury bearing what remained of her harvest. The other farmers in the valley had stopped replanting after the first attack. Some had already packed their wagons and left others, waited in fearful silence for the next visit from Hargrove's men. But Mai wasn't leaving. Her weathered hands gripped the shovel handle, calloused from years of work that predated her life in this valley. A life nobody here knew about. The rain plastered her dark hair against her face, obscuring the quiet calculation in her eyes as she methodically completed her task. From the ridgeline above, 3 riders watched. "She still ain't leaving," the youngest observed, spitting tobacco juice into the mud. "Stubborn as a mule," said another. "Boss won't like it." The third rider, older with a weathered face marked by a jagged scar running from temple to jaw, studied Mai with cold interest. "Widow's got spirit. Shame it's going to be broken." They turned their horses and disappeared into the mist. Attorney Sheriff Noah Chen wiped condensation from the window of his office and watched Misty Creek's main street turn to mud. 3 years as sheriff in this backwater town, and he'd never seen the valley this afraid. The door opened, bringing the smell of wet leather and whiskey. Martin Fletcher, owner of the town's general store, shook water from his hat. His usually jovial face was drawn with worry. "Hargrove's men hit the Thornwood place again," Fletcher said without preamble. Chen sighed. "Anyone hurt?" "No, just her corn, but they're sending a message, Noah. First Wilkins, then Patterson, now Mai's place 3 times. Everyone's talking about selling before things get worse. And that's exactly what they want," Chen replied, reaching for his coat. "Tell Judge Harrison I'll be by later to discuss options." Fletcher snorted. "What options? Law doesn't seem to reach this valley anymore." Chen buckled his gun belt. "I'm riding out to the Thornwood place. You sweet on that widow sheriff." Fletcher's attempt at humor fell flat. "Odd woman keeps to herself. Strange accent when she gets riled. Never quite fit in her or her husband. She's a citizen of this county," Chen said firmly, "and Daniel Thornwood was a good man." Was Fletcher, emphasized, looking nervous. "Until his accident. You pushing too hard on that might lead to more accidents." Chen paused at the door. "That what everybody's thinking. Stay quiet, sell your land, and maybe Hargrove will let you leave with your life." Fletcher wouldn't meet his eyes. "Just be careful, Noah. There's talk Vaughn Industries is backing Hargrove now. That's bigger than anything we can fight." Chen stepped into the rain. Fletcher was right about one thing. This was bigger than a local land grab, but he was wrong about Mai Thornwood. She wasn't just another widow trying to hold on to her farm. She was the most dangerous person in the valley, and only Chen knew why. 12 years earlier, Sharpsburg, Maryland. 1863. The artillery fire had finally stopped, leaving an eerie silence over the battlefield. Through his field glass, Colonel James Rafferty surveyed the Confederate position across the open field. "We need to know how many guns they've got on that ridge," he told his officers. "Sending scouts is suicide in daylight." "Sir," his adjutant interrupted, "Captain Reed is here." A weathered man in his 50s stepped forward, accompanied by a slight figure in an oversized coat. "My scout can get you that information." "Colonel," Reed said. Rafferty frowned. "You brought a boy into a war zone." "Reed." The figure removed her hat, revealing delicate features and determined eyes. "This is my daughter, Mai," Reed said. "Best shot and tracker I've ever trained. She can count those guns and be back before they know she was there." Rafferty's protest died when he saw the quiet confidence in the young woman's eyes. Asian features marked her as different, but something in her steady gaze made him nod. "Your funeral," he muttered, then watched in astonishment as she disappeared into the battlefield like a ghost. 3 hours later, she returned with exact positions, gun counts, and officer locations. Information that saved his regiment and turned the battle. Henry Yurnon. The memory faded as Mai hung her soaked coat by the fire. Her small cabin was meticulously clean, each item in its place, a far cry from the chaos of war that had defined her younger years. On the mantel sat a daguerreotype of a smiling man with kind eyes. Daniel, next to it, a worn compass that had belonged to her adoptive father, James Reed. She ran her fingers over Daniel's image, a railway engineer with dreams of connecting the West, 3 years gone, but the pain remained fresh. The official story, a tragic accident during a survey expedition. A story she pretended to believe while hiding the rage that burned beneath her grief. Mai poured herself a small measure of whiskey and sat at her kitchen table, spreading out a hand-drawn map of the valley. She marked the latest attack on her property with a small X, adding it to the pattern of similar incidents across neighboring farms. A knock at the door interrupted her study. She slid the map under a book and retrieved the shotgun from beside the door. "Who's there?" she called, her voice giving the slightest hint of her Vietnamese heritage. "It's Noah." She unlocked the door to admit the rain-drenched Sheriff Chen, removed his hat, revealing features that spoke of his own mixed heritage. Chinese father, American mother, in Misty Creek, they were the only two citizens who didn't fit the typical Western mold. "You're a long way from town, Sheriff," Mai said, setting the kettle to boil. "Heard about your corn," Chen replied, accepting the offered seat. "Third time. I'll replant. With winter coming, Mai, be reasonable." She set a cup of tea before him. "I'm not selling," Chen leaned forward. "Hargrove's men are getting bolder. Wilkins' place was burned to the ground last week. Patterson lost his entire herd. And what is the law doing about it?" Her tone was polite but pointed. Chen's frustration showed. "You know what we're up against. Judge Harrison is too afraid to issue warrants. Witnesses suddenly forget what they saw. I can't even get a telegram to the federal marshal without it being intercepted." Mai sat across from him. "So Hargrove wins." "I didn't say that," Chen's voice dropped. "I've been asking questions about your husband's accident." Her face remained impassive, but her hands stilled. "There's something you should know," Chen continued. "Daniel wasn't just surveying for the Northern Pacific. He'd found evidence of coal deposits throughout the valley-rich veins worth millions. What does that have to do with his accident? Maxwell Vaughn of Vaughn Industries has been buying land all around the valley for the past 2 years, mostly through proxies. Now he's making his move on Misty Creek itself." Mai's eyes narrowed slightly. "And Hargrove works for Vaughn." Chen nodded. "I think Daniel discovered Vaughn's plan. And I think that's why he had his accident." A long silence stretched between them. Mai's expression revealed nothing, but something deadly flickered in her eyes. "Why tell me this now?" she finally asked. "Because 3 more families sold out today, because Hargrove's bringing in more men, and because I found this in the old case files." He slid a folded paper across the table. Mai opened it, a map of survey routes with Daniel's handwriting in the margins, and circled in red the exact location of his death with a hastily scribbled note. "Tell Vaughn none of this comes cheap." "Daniel knew," she whispered. "I think he was trying to negotiate. Or maybe blackmail Vaughn with what he'd found. Either way, they killed him." Her voice was flat, emotionless. Chen watched her carefully. "Mai, I know who you were, what you did in the war. That was another life. We need that person now. The valley needs her." Mai folded the paper carefully. "What I need, Sheriff, is proof, not suspicions." "Proof gets people killed," Chen said, rising. "Just be careful. Hargrove's made it clear your farm is next on his list." After Chen left, Mai sat motionless by the fire, the map clutched in her hand. Outside, the rain continued its relentless assault, but she no longer heard it. She was lost in memories of Daniel's smile, his dreams for their future. His body broken at the bottom of a ravine, she moved to the worn rug in the center of the room and pulled it aside. Beneath the floorboards lay a compartment containing a long wooden case. The brass hinges creaked slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in oiled cloth, lay a Whitworth rifle. The most accurate weapon of the war, rare. and coveted a parting gift from Colonel Rafferty for services rendered to the Union. Beside it, a leather-bound journal filled with calculations, wind patterns, and trajectories written in her father's hand, and continued in her own precise script. Mai ran her fingers over the rifle's walnut stock, feeling the familiar contours. She had promised Daniel she would leave the violence of her past behind, that they would build something peaceful together. But Daniel was gone, and peace had never been an option. 2 days later, Wesley Hargrove and 6 of his men rode onto Mai's property just as the afternoon sun broke through the clouds. They found her on the porch mending a harness. She set her work aside and watched their approach without expression. Hargrove dismounted with fluid grace that belied his ruthless reputation. Tall and lean with silver threading his dark hair, he moved like a predator, economical and precise. The scar along his jaw tightened as he smiled. "Mrs. Thornwood," he called, tipping his hat with exaggerated courtesy. "Beautiful day after all that rain." Mai nodded slightly. "What brings you to my farm, Mr. Hargrove?" Neighborly concern. He gestured to her trampled cornfield. "Heard you've had some trouble." "Terrible thing." "Yes, terrible." Hargrove ascended the steps uninvited. His men remained mounted, strategically positioned around the yard. Mai noted their positions with a scout's precision. "Unfortunately, these incidents are becoming common." Hargrove continued, his voice smooth as polished stone. "Difficult times for a woman alone. I manage." "Of course you do." "Admirable." He surveyed her property. "Still, there are realities to consider. This land requires constant attention investment. The winters are harsh." Mai weighted her face a careful mask. "Several of your neighbors have recognized the wisdom of selling while the opportunity exists. Mr. Vaughn of Vaughn Industries is offering very generous terms." "I'm not interested in selling." Hargrove's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Thornwood, I admire your determination. But Misty Creek is changing. Progress is coming. Railways industry, small farms like yours will be left behind. This is my home. For now." Hargrove's tone hardened slightly. "But homes can become uncomfortable. Dangerous even, especially for a woman alone." Mai met his gaze directly. "Are you threatening me, Mr. Hargrove?" "Threatening? No." He chuckled as though the idea was absurd. "I'm offering protection for a modest percentage of your property's value. My men can ensure no further accidents befall your crops or livestock." "Protection from whom?" Hargrove's smile tightened. "Times are lawless, Mrs. Thornwood. Who can say where trouble comes from? Sheriff Chen can't be everywhere." Mai stood, her movements smooth and unhurried. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Hargrove, but I decline your offer." For a moment, something dangerous flashed across Hargrove's face, quickly masked by practiced civility. "Consider carefully, Mrs. Thornwood. Those who refuse reasonable offers often find themselves facing unreasonable alternatives." "Is that what happened to Daniel Thornwood?" she asked quietly. "Did he refuse a reasonable offer?" Silence fell between them. Hargrove studied her with new interest. "Accidents happen in these mountains." He finally said, "Your husband took risks, a lesson there perhaps." He descended the steps and mounted his horse. "We'll return tomorrow for your reconsideration. I suggest you use the time wisely." As they rode away, Mai remained on the porch until they disappeared around the bend. Only then did she allow her hands to tremble slightly, not from fear but from the effort of containing her rage. She went inside and removed the Whitworth rifle from its hiding place. The familiar weight steadied her as she checked the action and sighting mechanism. From a drawer she retrieved ammunition she'd prepared years ago, meticulously measured powder charges for consistent ballistics. As dusk fell, Mai positioned herself on the ridge overlooking her farm. She arranged her equipment with practiced efficiency, rangefinder powder ammunition, and her father's journal open to the pages on wind calculation. Then she waited, her breathing slow and regular, becoming one with the gathering darkness. Tabristone. Dawn broke over Misty Creek in streaks of crimson and gold. Mai had returned to her cabin an hour earlier, the rifle once again hidden beneath the floorboards. She prepared breakfast as though it were any other day. The thunder of approaching hooves came just as she finished her coffee. Watching through the window, she counted 8 riders. Hargrove and 7 men, 2 more than yesterday. They carried torches despite the early hour. Mai stepped onto her porch, shotgun held casually at her side. "You're early, Mr. Hargrove." Hargrove's eyes were cold, his pretense of civility abandoned. "Your answer, Mrs. Thornwood. Will you sell to Vaughn Industries, or do we burn you out?" "Neither." Hargrove nodded to his men. "Burn the house first. Let's see how brave she feels, watching everything go up in smoke." The men dismounted, torches ready. Mai didn't move, didn't raise her shotgun. She simply smiled. "I wouldn't," she said softly. "And why is that?" Hargrove sneered. The crack of a rifle shot split the morning stillness. The torch in the nearest man's hand exploded in a shower of sparks. Before anyone could react, a second shot took the hat cleanly off another man's head. "What the hell?" Hargrove's hand went to his pistol as his men scattered. A third shot kicked up dirt precisely between Hargrove's feet. Then silence. "Sniper!" One of the men shouted, diving behind a water trough. Mai hadn't moved from her position on the porch. "You should leave, Mr. Hargrove." "Who the hell is out there?" Hargrove demanded, his composure shattered. "A message." Mai replied, "Misty Creek Valley is no longer undefended." As if in response, another shot rang out. This one shattered the neck of a whiskey bottle protruding from the saddlebag of Hargrove's horse. The animal reared in panic. "This is your only warning." Mai continued calmly, "Leave my property, leave this valley, or next time those shots won't miss." Hargrove fought to control his frightened horse. "You've made a grave mistake," he spat. "Nobody threatens me. Nobody." "This isn't a threat." Mai said, "It's a promise." As if to punctuate her words, a final shot split the air, taking the left stirrup off Hargrove's saddle with surgical precision. The message was clear. Whoever was firing could have killed them all, but chose not to. Hargrove's face contorted with rage, but fear won out. He wheeled his horse around. "This isn't over," he shouted as he rode away, his men following in disarray. Mai watched them go, her expression unchanged. Only when they were out of sight did she permit herself a small smile. The valley had been silent too long. It was time for that to change. From the kitchen drawer, she removed the folded map Chen had brought her. Daniel's final message. She traced the location of his accident with her finger, determination hardening her resolve. "You're right, Hargrove," she whispered. "This isn't over. It's just beginning." Word spread through Misty Creek Valley like wildfire. Hargrove's men, the invincible enforcers who had terrorized the community for months, had been driven off a widow's farm by an unseen marksman. By nightfall, the story had grown with each telling. Some said it was a company of former Union sharpshooters. Others claimed it was the ghost of Daniel Thornwood himself returned to protect his wife. Sheriff Chen heard all versions as he made his rounds through town. He said nothing, but his eyes held a glimmer of satisfaction that hadn't been there for months. In the saloon, Fletcher cornered him at the bar. "Is it true?" the storekeeper whispered. Someone stood up to Hargrove. "Appears so," Chen replied, keeping his voice neutral. "Who was it?" "Army men hired guns." Chen sipped his whiskey. "Does it matter? Maybe it's time. People remembered they don't have to bow to threats." As he left the saloon, Chen noticed something different in the townsfolk's faces. The fear remained, but now there was something else. A spark, a question. If one widow could resist, what might be possible together? The meeting took place after dark in Mai's barn. 4 farmers, the Petersons, Old Man Whitaker, and the Rivera family, sat on hay bales, their faces illuminated by lantern light. Sheriff Chen leaned against a support post. Mai stood before them, arms crossed. "I won't pretend we're not afraid," Joseph Peterson said, breaking the silence. "Hargrove's killed for less than what happened today." "Mai Juan spoke out last month," Sophia Rivera added. She was the youngest among them, a beautiful woman with grief etched into her features. "They hung him from our own oak tree, left him there as a message." "We're sorry for your loss," Mai said quietly. Sophia's eyes flashed. "Sorry doesn't help me or my children. Action does. That's why I'm here." "What exactly are we proposing?" Whitaker asked, his weathered face skeptical. We're farmers, not gunfighters. We're proposing survival, Mai answered. Hargrove and Vaughn want this valley emptied. They'll burn you out, destroy your livestock, threaten your families. Whatever it takes to make you sell for pennies. Ain't no secret there, Peterson agreed. But what choice do we have? We resist. Mai said simply, together. Chen stepped forward. Hargrove's men prey on isolated homesteads. They avoid confrontation when the odds aren't stacked in their favor. The shooting today proved that, Mai continued. One marksman drove off 8 men. And where is this marksman? Whitaker demanded. Why ain't he here? Mai and Chen exchanged glances. That's not important right now. Chen said, like hell it ain't. Whitaker stood. You're asking us to risk everything based on one incident. For all we know, it was blind luck. It wasn't luck, Mai said firmly. How can you be sure? Mai hesitated, then made a decision. Because I know who was shooting. All eyes fixed on her. The war didn't just happen in the East. She began carefully. My father was a scout for the Union. He taught me to track, to hunt, to shoot with precision. Those skills don't disappear. You, Peterson looked incredulous. You're saying you know the shooter? Mai nodded, allowing the half-truth. And I can teach others not to become marksmen overnight, but to defend their homes effectively. A woman teaching men to shoot. Whitaker scoffed. My husband was murdered for discovering coal on our lands. Mai said, her voice hard. Vaughn wanted it. Daniel refused to sell. Tell me, Mr. Whitaker, what does a woman do when the world takes everything rollover or fight back? Sophia stood suddenly. I'll learn. Juan is gone. My children have no father, but they have me. You can count me in too, Peterson said, glancing apologetically at Whitaker. I ain't selling the land my grandfather died working. Whitaker remained unconvinced. This is suicide. Vaughn has money connections all the way to the capital. Hargrove has killers. What do we have? Each other, Chen said, and something they don't expect. The will to fight. As the meeting continued, strategies formed. Farms would establish signals. 3 rifle shots in rapid succession meant trouble requiring assistance. Lookouts would be posted on ridgelines. Families with young children would rotate, staying together for safety. Mai outlined basic defensive tactics. How to fortify homes against attack, create effective firing positions, coordinate responses. Throughout, she was careful not to reveal too much of her own expertise. When the others had gone, Chen remained behind. You're not telling them everything, he observed. They're not ready to hear everything, Mai replied, extinguishing the lanterns. They need hope, not my life story. Hargrove will return with more men. I'm counting on it. Chen studied her face in the dim light. It was you on the ridge this morning, wasn't it? Not some mysterious marksman. Mai's expression revealed nothing. Mai. Chen pressed. I've seen your military records. I know what you were capable of. That woman is gone. Is she? Because someone put 5 shots within inches of their targets at over 300 yards today? That's not beginner's luck. Mai moved to the barn door, effectively ending the conversation. Get these people ready, Sheriff. Hargrove won't wait long to retaliate. After Chen left, Mai walked the perimeter of her property, checking sight lines and potential defensive positions. The valley lay peaceful under starlight, the scattered homesteads marked by distant lanterns. So much space between each farm, so vulnerable when isolated. She returned to her cabin and sat at the kitchen table, cleaning her Whitworth rifle with practiced hands. The movement was meditative, allowing her mind to work through the tactical situation. Hargrove would return, but not immediately. First, he would report to Vaughn. They would adjust their strategy, bring in more men, perhaps professional gunmen. The next attack would be calculated to crush any resistance and terrorize others who might consider standing up. Mai opened her father's journal, adding fresh observations about wind patterns in the valley. James Reed had adopted her when she was 10, the orphaned daughter of a Vietnamese woman and an American merchant sailor. He'd seen something in the solemn child that others missed: patience, precision, and uncanny situational awareness. Under his tutelage, she had become something rare, a female scout and sharpshooter in a man's war. Those skills had saved countless lives, They had also marked her as different, dangerous, unsuitable for normal society. Only Daniel had seen past that to the woman who wanted peace. "I'm sorry," she whispered to his memory. "I tried it your way." Vaughn Industries occupied the entire third floor of Helena's grandest hotel. Maxwell Vaughn's office commanded views of the territorial capital and the mountains beyond, a fitting backdrop for a man who considered himself an empire builder. At 60, Vaughn retained the commanding presence that had helped him rise from Pennsylvania coal miner to industrial magnate. His silver hair was impeccably groomed, his suit London-tailored. Only the hardness in his pale eyes hinted at the ruthlessness that had fueled his ascent. Wesley Hargrove stood before his desk finishing his report on the Misty Creek incident. Vaughn listened without interruption, fingers steepled beneath his chin, a sharpshooter. He finally said, "In that backwater valley, precision shooting." Hargrove confirmed, "Military trained. Your men saw nothing, no muzzle flash, no movement, nothing professional work." Vaughn rose and moved to the window. "This complicates matters. We're already behind schedule on the Southern Rail connection. The Pittsburgh investors arrive next month expecting to see progress. It's one setback, one that could inspire others." Vaughn's tone remained even, but Hargrove tensed nonetheless. "First, that engineer, what was his name? Thornwood. Yes, his unfortunate accident should have cleared the way. Instead, his widow proves troublesome, and now this mysterious marksman appears." Vaughn turned his expression, calculating. "I don't believe in coincidences, Wesley. What are you suggesting? Find out everything about my Thornwood, where she came from, who she knows, her connection to this sharpshooter?" Hargrove nodded. "And in the meantime, make an example, not of her, not yet, but someone in that valley needs to remind the others what resistance costs. I'll need more men. Take whatever you need, but understand this." Vaughn stepped closer, his voice deadly quiet. "My investors arrive in 30 days. By then I need every deed in Misty Creek signed over, every single one. Even if it means—" "I'm not interested in methods, only results." Vaughn returned to his desk. "That valley sits on $50 million in coal deposits. The rail line through it connects to markets in 3 territories. I will have it, Wesley. The only question is how many graves need to be dug before that happens." For 3 days, an uneasy calm settled over Misty Creek. Mai used the time to visit each participating farm, assessing defensive positions and establishing communication protocols. At the Rivera place, she worked with Sophia to create concealed firing points overlooking the main approach. "You've done this before," Sophia observed as Mai demonstrated how to stabilize a rifle against a fence post. "I had a good teacher," Mai replied. "Your father." Mai nodded. "My father taught me nothing but how to be a good wife," Sophia said, sighting along her rifle barrel. "Juan was kind, but he thought a woman's place was with the children. And now I am mother and father both." Sophia lowered the rifle. "Your husband, Daniel. He understood what you were." Mai paused. "He saw me clearly, not what I had done or what I could do, just me. You were fortunate." Sophia's eyes held a wisdom beyond her years. "Most men fear a woman who doesn't need their protection." That evening, riding back to her farm, Mai noticed dust rising from the direction of town, a large group of riders moving fast, too many for a casual visit. She spurred her horse to a gallop, taking a shortcut through the creek that gave the valley its name. She reached the Peterson farm just as flames began to consume the barn. Gunshots echoed across the homestead. Joseph Peterson and his teenage son were pinned down behind a water trough, exchanging fire with at least a dozen mounted attackers. Mai dismounted a safe distance away, concealing her horse in a stand of trees. She retrieved the Whitworth from its scabbard and moved quickly to a position on the eastern ridge. From there, she had clear sight lines to the entire property. Through her scope, she counted 15 of Hargrove's men. Hargrove himself directed the attack from horseback, staying beyond effective pistol range. His tactics were military, covering fire, keeping the Petersons suppressed, while 3 men worked their way around the flank to approach the house where Peterson's wife and daughters were hiding. Mai calculated distance, wind, and elevation in seconds. Then she began firing methodically. Her first shot took down the lead flanker, striking him in the shoulder. Deliberately non-lethal but incapacitating. Her second found another attacker's leg as he turned to see what had happened to his companion. The third man broke cover and ran for his horse. Mai let him go. A message would spread faster with witnesses. She shifted her attention to the main group. Two rapid shots struck the ground at Hargrove's horse's feet, causing the animal to rear in panic. As his men's heads turned upwards, searching for the shooter, Mai put her next bullet through Hargrove's hat. He immediately ordered a retreat, recognizing the tactical disadvantage. Mai allowed herself a small smile as they galloped away, leaving two wounded behind. She was reloading when movement caught her eye. 3 riders approaching from the north. She swung her rifle toward them, then relaxed Sheriff Chen with Sophia Rivera and Jacob Whitaker. 3 shots. Sophia explained when they met at the Peterson house. The signal worked. The wounded attackers were secured in Peterson's root cellar, awaiting transport to the town jail. Chen examined their identification with growing concern. "These aren't Hargrove's usual men," he told Mai privately. "These are professional gunmen from Helena. This one," he pointed to a man with a shoulder wound, "is wanted for 3 murders in Dakota territory." Vaughn's upping the stakes. Mai concluded, "This is different from running farmers off their land." Chen agreed, "He's bringing in killers now." By sunset, word of the failed attack had spread throughout the valley. Families gathered at the Peterson farm, bringing food and supplies to help rebuild the burned barn. As darkness fell, Mai observed the changed atmosphere. Determination replacing fear, community forming where isolation had been the norm. Chen found her watching from the porch. "This was your plan all along, wasn't it? Force them to attack, unite the valley against a common enemy." "It's only beginning," Mai cautioned. "Hargrove's embarrassed now. He'll come back stronger." "But not tonight," Chen nodded toward the gathered families. "Tonight they remember what it means to stand together." As Mai rode home hours later, the weight of leadership settled uncomfortably on her shoulders. These people followed her because they believed in the mysterious sharpshooter, her carefully constructed myth. How long before that myth endangered them all? The attack on the Willis farm came at dawn 3 days later. By the time Mai arrived with Chen and several armed farmers, the house was engulfed in flames. The family, Willis, his wife, and their 3 children, had escaped only because their eldest son had been on watch duty. 20 men at least. Willis reported, his face smudged with soot, eyes wild with shock. "Came out of nowhere. Professional killers, not local toughs." "Hargrove?" Chen asked. Willis shook his head. "Never saw him. Different leader, tall man, bald with burn scars on his neck." Mai and Chen exchanged glances. "Carter," Chen said grimly. "Thomas Carter, Pinkerton agent, turned gun for hire. Vaughn's bringing in his elite enforcers now." As they helped the Willis family salvage what they could, Mai took Chen aside. "This isn't random. Willis's farm overlooks the northern pass, the only direct route from Helena into the valley. They're cutting off access points," Chen realized, "isolating us." By nightfall, reports confirmed Mai's assessment. The Oakley place guarding the eastern approach had been burned out. The bridge over Misty Creek's deepest section was destroyed. Hargrove's men now controlled every major access route into the valley. An emergency meeting convened at the Rivera farm, now serving as the Resistance's central gathering point. 20 determined faces looked to Mai and Chen for guidance. "They're going to pick us off one by one," Peterson said, voicing what everyone feared. "Not if we consolidate," Mai countered. "Individual farms are vulnerable. Together we're stronger." "You're suggesting we abandon our homes?" Whitaker asked incredulously. "Temporarily," Mai clarified. "We create a defensible position. Pool our resources, our manpower. My farm sits on high ground with clear sight lines in all directions." Sophia offered 3 wells for waterstone walls. The debate continued until midnight, but ultimately the decision was made. Those committed to resistance would relocate to the Rivera farm, establishing a fortified position. Others would remain at their own properties, maintaining a network of lookouts and messengers. As the meeting dispersed, Sophia approached Mai privately. "I want you to teach me to shoot like you do. That takes years of training. Then teach me what you can. Sophia's eyes burned with determination. The men respect you because of the mysterious sharpshooter. But we both know the truth, don't we? Mai tensed. What do you mean? I've watched how you move, how you scan a room, calculate distances. My father was Mexican cavalry before coming north. I recognize military training. She stepped closer. There is no other marksman, it's you. After a long moment, Mai nodded slightly. If anyone discovers this, they won't hear it from me, Sophia promised. But I want to learn, not just basic shooting, everything you know. Why? Because like you, I have nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Sir. The resistance consolidated at the Rivera farm over the next 2 days. 38 adults and 12 children transformed the homestead into a fortress. Barricades rose around the perimeter. Firing positions were established and manned in rotating shifts. Supplies were inventoried and rationed. Mai and Sophia developed a training regimen, teaching basic marksmanship to everyone capable of holding a rifle. The men, initially skeptical of female instructors, quickly recognized Mai's expertise. None questioned where she had acquired such skills. They simply absorbed the knowledge gratefully. Chen rode daily circuits through the valley, maintaining contact with outlying farms and gathering intelligence. His reports grew increasingly troubling. Hargroves established a headquarters at the abandoned mill. He informed Mai and the Leadership Council. Nearly 50 men there now. Heavy weapons. I saw at least one Gatling gun. Soldiers? Mai asked. Professional gunmen, mostly. Some former military. They're building something big at the South Ridge. Siege weaponry. Mai guessed they're preparing for a conventional assault. Privately, she knew their situation was deteriorating. Food supplies would last 2 weeks at most, ammunition was limited. While morale remained high, the reality of their predicament couldn't be ignored. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and cut off from outside help. That night, Mai slipped away from the Rivera farm, taking the hidden game trails her father had taught her to recognize. She moved silently through the darkness to Hargrove's camp at the old mill, climbing to a vantage point that overlooked the operation. What she saw confirmed her worst fears. This was no ragtag band of enforcers. Vaughn had deployed what amounted to a private army, well-equipped, disciplined, methodically preparing for an assault. At their center, she recognized Thomas Carter Vaughn's special enforcer, directing operations with military precision. Mai was preparing to withdraw when movement caught her eye. A wagon arriving under heavy guard. From it emerged a figure she recognized immediately from newspaper photographs. Maxwell Vaughn himself, come to oversee the final conquest of Misty Creek Valley. She aimed her rifle, briefly, the crosshairs centering on Vaughn's chest. One shot would end this, but it would also turn a land dispute into a blood feud that would bring the full might of Vaughn Industries down on the valley. Not yet. Not this way. Returning to the Rivera farm before dawn, Mai found Sophia waiting anxiously. Where have you been? Reconnaissance. Vaughn's here personally. That's good, isn't it? Shows we've got him worried. It means he's done waiting. The attack will come soon, and it will be overwhelming. Sophia absorbed this grimly. Then we should strike first, hit them before they're fully prepared. Mai nodded slowly. A targeted operation. Disable their heaviest weapons, disrupt their organization. When turn. Tonight, select 4 of your best, tell no one else. Not even Chen. The fewer who know, the better our chances. As Sophia moved away, Mai gazed across the valley toward the distant mill. Her tactical assessment was honest. A preemptive strike made sense. But something deeper drove her decision. Vaughn was within her reach at last. The man ultimately responsible for Daniel's death. Justice and vengeance blurred in her mind as she prepared for the night's mission. The raid began at midnight under cloudy skies. Mai led Sophia and 4 chosen men through the forest, approaching Hargrove's camp from the least guarded western slope. They carried minimal equipment, knives, pistols with cloth-wrapped cylinders to muffle the sound, and packets of blasting powder. Mai had scouted 3 primary targets: the ammunition wagon, the Gatling gun position, and the command tent, where she had observed Carter and Hargrove conferring. Vaughn was quartered separately in a cabin at the edge of the complex. They separated into pairs, each assigned a specific objective. Mai and Sophia took the most dangerous task, the command tent in the heart of the camp. Using hand signals, Mai guided Sophia through the perimeter sentries. They froze as a guard passed within feet of their position, resuming their advance only when he moved away. The entire operation depended on stealth. A single alarm would bring overwhelming response. They reached the command tent as a distant explosion marked the successful sabotage of the ammunition wagon. Guards shouted and ran toward the disturbance. Exactly as planned, Mai motioned Sophia forward. They slipped inside the tent to find it empty except for maps and documents spread across a table. Mai quickly gathered the papers, recognizing their value. Detailed plans for the assault on the Rivera farm, including artillery positions and attack vectors. "Look at this," Sophia whispered, pointing to another document. A list of names with numbers beside them. Mai scanned it quickly. Prices, she realized, bounties on each resistance member. Her own name topped the list at $1,000. An enormous sum. Chen's followed at $500. Voices approached. Guards returning. They secreted the documents inside their clothing and prepared to retreat when the tent flap opened. Thomas Carter entered, followed by Wesley Hargrove. For a frozen moment, the four stared at each other in mutual shock. Then Carter went for his gun. Mai moved with combat-honed reflexes, driving her knife into Carter's shoulder. He grunted in pain but still managed to draw his pistol. Sophia lunged at Hargrove, slashing wildly with her blade. The confined space made firearms dangerous for all involved. The struggle became a desperate hand-to-hand fight in near darkness. Mai disarmed Carter with a precise strike to his wrist, but he countered by slamming her against the center pole. The entire tent shuddered. Hargrove had pinned Sophia against the table, his hands around her throat. Mai kicked backward, catching him in the kidney. His grip loosened enough for Sophia to break free. "Go!" Mai commanded, shoving Sophia toward the rear of the tent. "Get those plans back." Sophia hesitated only briefly before slashing through the canvas and disappearing into the night. Mai turned to follow but found Carter blocking her path. Behind her, Hargrove was rising, drawing his pistol. "Well, well," Hargrove said, breathing heavily. "The widow Thornwood Vaughn will be pleased." "This explains the mysterious marksman." Carter added, blood staining his shirt from the knife wound. "It was you all along." Mai assessed her options with cold clarity. 2 armed men, multiple guards outside, dwindling seconds before discovery. She feinted toward the tent flap, then reversed direction, diving through the same cut in the canvas Sophia had made. Gunshots followed, tearing through the fabric inches from her head. Alarm sounded throughout the camp as she sprinted into the darkness. Mai reached the tree line as mounted pursuers organized behind her. She scrambled up the steep hillside, using terrain for cover. A bullet splintered bark near her face. Another tore through her sleeve, but the darkness and her superior knowledge of the landscape gave her the advantage. After an hour of evasion, she reached the rendezvous point, a cave hidden behind a waterfall. 3 of her team waited there, including Sophia. The 4th, Henry Willis, was missing. "They got him," Sophia reported grimly, "covering our retreat from the ammunition wagon." Mai digested this news with outward calm, despite the guilt that twisted inside her. "Alive." "I think so. They were dragging him toward the main camp when we lost sight." "Did everyone complete their objectives?" Nods all around. "The ammunition supplies were destroyed, the Gatling gun disabled, the command tent compromised. Tactically, the raid had succeeded. But they had lost a man, and worse, their identity was now known." "They'll come at first light," Mai said, full force. "Then we'd better move." Sophia headed toward the cave entrance. "The others need to know what's coming." Mai caught her arm. "Sophia, I'm sorry about Willis." Sophia's eyes reflected both grief and resolve. "This is war, Mai. There will be casualties. As long as we make Vaughn and Hargrove pay for each one, I can live with that." As they made their way back toward the Rivera farm, Mai was struck by how much Sophia had changed in the short weeks since they'd met. The grieving widow had transformed into a warrior, hardened by loss and driven by purpose. Mai recognized the transformation because she had undergone it herself years ago. The question that haunted her was whether Sophia, or any of them, would be able to find their way back when the fighting ended, if it ended. By dawn, the Rivera farm buzzed with frantic activity. Barricades were reinforced, ammunition, distributed women and children, moved to the secured root cellar that would serve as both shelter and field hospital. Mai stood with Chen and the resistance leadership outlining the defense plan using the captured documents. They'll attack from 3 directions, she explained, pointing to the map. Main force from the west where the ground offers the most cover, secondary forces from north and south to divide our attention. What about the east? Peterson asked. Too exposed, they'd be vulnerable crossing that open ground. Chen studied the enemy positions. They still outnumber us at least 3-1, and they have artillery we can't match. We have defensive positions, knowledge of the terrain, and higher ground. Mai countered, those count for something. Not enough, a new voice interjected. All heads turned to Jacob Whitaker, who had remained skeptically supportive throughout the resistance effort. What do you mean? Chen demanded. I mean, Whitaker said, his voice heavy with resignation. That Vaughn contacted me yesterday. He's offering triple market value for any farm sold in the next 24 hours. No questions asked, no repercussions for past resistance. Silence fell over the group. You're considering it? Mai realized. Whitaker nodded slowly. My grandson's sick, needs doctors in Helena. What am I fighting for if he dies while I'm playing soldier? You're abandoning us. Sophia accused. I'm being realistic. Whitaker countered. Look around, farmers with hunting rifles against professional killers. How does this end except with all of us dead? No one answered because the truth was uncomfortable. Whitaker had simply voiced what many privately feared. The resistance had always been a desperate gamble. This changes our defensive calculations. Mai said, finally refusing to beg or accuse. Anyone else reconsidering should say so now, before the attack begins. In the painful silence that followed, 3 more families admitted they had received Vaughn's offer and were considering acceptance. The mood darkened further. Think carefully, Chen warned. Vaughn's offering amnesty now, because he's worried once enough of you surrender, that offer vanishes for the rest. You'll be selling out your neighbors to save yourselves. We've died for each other already, Sophia added, her voice hard. Willis is in their hands because he covered our retreat. Guilt and uncertainty warred on many faces. Mai understood their conflict. These were not soldiers committed to a cause, but families trying to survive. She couldn't blame them for wavering. Everyone must decide for themselves, she said finally. Those who choose to accept Vaughn's offer should leave now before the attack. The rest of us will adjust our plans accordingly. By noon, the Rivera Farms defenders had dwindled from 38 to 26. The departure of each family left both physical gaps in their defenses and emotional wounds among those who remained. Mai redrew their defensive perimeter, consolidating their reduced numbers around the farmhouse and main barn. There was no longer any possibility of holding the entire property. We should consider withdrawal, Chen suggested privately. The mountains to the east still offer an escape route. Mai shook her head. Running means Vaughn wins everything. Staying gives us one last chance to negotiate. Negotiate with what leverage? This valley is worthless to Vaughn if enough farms remain in resistance. He needs total control for his railway and mining operations. Peccani, you're gambling with people's lives. We're all gambling, Sheriff. The question is whether we let Vaughn rig the game. Their conversation was interrupted by a lookout's shout riders approaching from the west, a small group, not the expected attack force. Through her scope, Mai recognized Wesley Hargrove leading 5 men under a white flag of truce. Behind him rode a bloodied and bound Henry Willis. They want to talk, she told the others, and they're using Willis as leverage. Chen straightened his badge. I'll meet them. Not alone, Mai insisted. Together they walked beyond the defensive perimeter. Sophia joined them, uninvited, her rifle held ready. Despite the flag of truce, Hargrove reined in 20 yards away, his scarred face tight with suppressed rage. Sheriff, Mrs. Thornwood, Mrs. Rivera. He nodded to each. I bring terms from Mr. Vaughn. We're listening, Chen replied. Hargrove gestured to Willis. First your man. Alive as you see, despite his sabotage efforts, Mr. Vaughn offers him in exchange for the documents stolen from our camp. Mai nodded slightly. The documents were copies now, their intelligence already incorporated into defense plans. And second, Mr. Vaughn recognizes your determination, Hargrove continued. He's authorized me to offer a final opportunity. All resistance members may leave the valley unharmed with transportation provided to the territorial line. In exchange, you relinquish all claims to your properties. And those who wish to stay, my asked, must sell at market rates and agree never to speak of recent events. Chen frowned. Vaughn burned people out, threatened families, killed innocent men, and now he expects silence. He expects pragmatism. Sheriff, Hargrove replied coldly, the alternative is significantly less pleasant for everyone. You mean you'll kill us all? Sophia said bluntly. Hargrove's smile was chilling. Mrs. Rivera, I admire directness. Yes, you have until sundown to decide. After that, he nudged his horse closer, voice dropping. I personally guarantee that everyone who raised a hand against us will be made an example of. Especially you, Mrs. Thornwood. We'll discuss your terms, Mai said evenly. Willis stays with us until we have your answer. Hargrove turned his horse. Sundown, Mrs. Thornwood. Not a minute later. After they departed, debate erupted among the defenders. Some argued for accepting the terms, seeing it as the only chance for survival. Others rejected any surrender, believing Vaughn's promises worthless. He won't let us leave alive, Sophia insisted. Not after what we've done. He might, Chen countered reluctantly. Vaughn cares about his business interests. Mass killing brings attention he doesn't want. If we're gone, he gets what he wants without the mess. And Willis, someone asked, dead either way. Mai said quietly, they can't release him to tell what he's seen in their camp. The argument continued through the afternoon as the sun tracked westward. No consensus emerged. Some families prepared to accept Vaughn's terms, packing what they could carry. Others reinforced defensive positions, grimly committed to resistance. Watching the fractured group, Mai felt the weight of failure. She had encouraged these people to stand up to fight for their homes. Now many would lose everything regardless of which choice they made. As sunset approached, she found Sophia checking rifle sights at the western barricade. You should go. Mai told her, take your children and leave with those accepting Vaughn's offer. Sophia didn't look up from her work. My children are safe with my sister in Denver. I sent them before this began. Then there's nothing keeping you here, isn't there? Sophia finally met her gaze. My husband is buried on this land. My future was meant to be here. There's no future if you're dead. Maybe not for me. Sophia's eyes hardened. But those who come after might have a chance if someone stands against men like Vaughn. Now, Mai recognized the resolve in her friend's face, the same determination that had driven her own most difficult decisions. There would be no persuading Sophia to leave. As the day's last light gilded the valley, 17 defenders remained at the Rivera farm, less than half their original number. The others had departed toward the eastern pass, accepting Vaughn's terms, with varying degrees of shame and relief. Chen joined Mai on the porch as they watched Hargrove approaching once more. What will you tell him? He asked. The truth. Some accept his terms, some refuse. He'll attack at dawn. Mai nodded. Which side will you choose, Sheriff? Chen adjusted his badge. I swore an oath to uphold the law and protect the people of this county. The law may have failed, but my oath hasn't. Hargrove's expression darkened as Mai delivered their divided response. Mr. Vaughn's offer was for complete surrender. He insisted, not this half measure. It's the only answer you're getting. Mai replied firmly. Those who accepted your terms have already left for the Eastern Pass. The rest of us stay. Tuna, then you die here. Hargrove's attempt at regret couldn't mask his satisfaction. A pity, Mrs. Thornwood. You've shown remarkable abilities. Mr. Vaughn might have found a place for someone with your skills. I already have a place. This valley. Not for much longer. He turned his horse. One last chance to reconsider, Mrs. Thornwood. Come to the mill before midnight alone. Perhaps we can find terms specifically for you. And if I refuse, then I'll personally ensure you watch your friends die before you join them. The facade of civility vanished, revealing the predator beneath. Daniel's death was quick, Yours won't be. After he left, Chen gripped Mai's arm. You're not considering his offer. Of course not, but his invitation provides an opportunity. For what? Mai's expression was determined. To end this before anyone else dies. Midnight found Mai Thornwood moving silently through the forest toward the old mill. She wore dark clothing, her hair tied back, the Whitworth rifle slung across her back. She carried minimal ammunition. This wasn't a shooting mission, and Daniel's compass to guide her through the moonless night. She bypassed Hargrove's sentries with the ease of long practice using terrain and shadow to approach the mill from its least guarded aspect. Her target wasn't Hargrove, who had made the invitation as a trap, but Maxwell Vaughn himself. The captive Willis had revealed Vaughn's location during Sophia's interrogation. A cabin separate from the main camp, guarded, but relatively isolated. If she could reach Vaughn, take him hostage, the dynamic would shift entirely. It was a desperate gamble. If she failed, the resistance would lose its most effective fighter before the battle even began. If she succeeded, they might negotiate terms that allowed some to keep their land. The mill complex appeared ahead, lanterns marking sentry positions. Mai cataloged each guard's location, plotting her approach to the cabin on the north edge, where Willis had reported seeing Vaughn. She was 50 yards from her target when a shot rang out behind her. Mai dropped instantly, rolling into deeper cover as more shots followed. Not aimed at her, but originating from the direction of the Rivera farm. The attack had begun early under cover of darkness rather than at dawn. She cursed silently. Hargrove had anticipated her move, using the invitation to draw her away from the defenses. All around the mill, men rushed to horses, grabbing weapons as officers shouted orders. The distraction worked to Mai's advantage, allowing her to slip closer to Vaughn's cabin as attention focused elsewhere. She reached the cabin's rear window as the sounds of battle intensified in the distance. Inside, Vaughn was hurriedly packing documents while arguing with a subordinate. Two guards stood watch at the front door. Mai weighed her options rapidly. The direct approach had become more dangerous with the guards on alert, but the chaos of the night attack provided cover for more aggressive action. She removed a small mirror from her pocket and angled it to catch lamplight, creating a brief flash visible through the trees some distance away. Then she circled to a position near the cabin's entrance and waited. The diversion came 3 minutes later, a rifle shot from the forest followed by another. The guards reacted instantly, moving away from the door to investigate exactly as Mai had hoped. She slipped inside, closing the door silently behind her. Vaughn and his assistant looked up in shock as she leveled her pistol. "Don't move," she ordered quietly. "Hands where I can see them." The assistant reached for a concealed weapon. Mai shot him in the shoulder without hesitation, the sound shockingly loud in the confined space. He collapsed with a cry of pain. "As I said, don't move." She kept her pistol trained on Vaughn, who had frozen behind his desk. "Maxwell Vaughn, we finally meet." "Mrs. Thornwood, I presume—" Vaughn's composure was remarkable given the circumstances. "I've heard much about you." "Oh, bind his hands," Mai instructed the wounded assistant, tossing him a length of cord from her pocket. "Slowly, any heroics will cost him his life, not yours." "You won't escape," Vaughn said calmly as his hands were secured. "My men surround this camp. Most of your men are currently attacking the Rivera farm," Mai corrected. "The rest are distracted by gunfire to the east. We'll manage." She gagged Vaughn with a bandana, then secured the assistant similarly. From outside came shouts. The guards were turning at the sound of the shot. Mai positioned herself beside the door. When the first guard entered, she struck him with the pistol butt at the base of his skull. He crumpled without a sound. The second guard received similar treatment as he bent to check his companion. "Move," she ordered Vaughn, pressing her gun against his ribs. "Quietly." They slipped out the rear window as more men approached the cabin. Mai guided her captive into the forest, keeping to the shadows, moving steadily away from both the mill and the distant battle. Their destination wasn't the Rivera farm, which would certainly fall under the overwhelming assault, but a hidden cave system Mai had scouted days earlier, a final fallback position known only to her and Sophia. After an hour's cautious travel, they reached the concealed entrance. Mai forced Vaughn inside and secured him to a rock outcropping. Only then did she remove his gag. "Impressive, Mrs. Thornwood," he said, flexing his jaw. "But ultimately, futile by dawn, your resistance will be crushed. My men will find us eventually." "Perhaps," Mai acknowledged, checking her weapons. "But you won't live to see it if they approach carelessly. You would murder an unarmed prisoner. You would destroy families for coal deposits." Vaughn studied her with calculated interest. "Business requires difficult decisions. Nothing personal. It became personal when you ordered my husband's death." A flicker of surprise crossed Vaughn's face before his mask of control returned. "Daniel Thornwood died in an unfortunate accident." "Stop lying." Mai's voice remained steady, but her eyes burned. "Daniel discovered your plans for the valley. He threatened to expose you, so you had him killed. Your husband was an idealist who didn't understand progress. He understood perfectly. He offered to help you establish a fair route through the valley that would benefit everyone. Instead, you chose to take by force what you couldn't buy legally." Vaughn's expression hardened. "The strong survive, Mrs. Thornwood. The weak make way. That's the law of nature." "Is it?" Mai moved closer, her voice dangerously soft. "Then perhaps you should consider your current position before lecturing me on strength and weakness." She left him bound in the cave's interior while she established a lookout position near the entrance. From there, she could see fires burning in the distance, the Rivera farm under attack. Guilt gnawed at her for abandoning the others, but the strategic logic was sound. With Vaughn as hostage, they had leverage they desperately needed. Dawn broke over Misty Creek Valley, revealing columns of smoke rising from multiple locations. The attack had spread beyond the Rivera farm to the remaining resistant homesteads. Vaughn's forces were executing a scorched earth policy. Mai was preparing to move to a better vantage point when a noise behind her made her spin rifle raised. A figure emerged from the forest, Sophia bloodied but alive, supporting Sheriff Chen, whose left arm hung useless at his side. "Thank God," Sophia breathed upon seeing Mai. "We thought you might be dead." Mai helped them into the cave's shelter. "The farm overrun," Chen said grimly as Mai examined his wound. A clean gunshot through the shoulder. "They hit us from all sides with twice the men we expected, artillery too. Casualties." Sophia's face told the story before her words. "At least 7 dead that I saw. The rest captured or scattered. Peterson and his boy fought to the end, covering our escape." Mai closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the weight of more deaths, more failures. "We have Vaughn," she finally said, gesturing toward the cave interior. "It's our only card left." Chen looked skeptical. "Hargrove won't care. He'll keep fighting, even if Vaughn orders him to stop." "Hargrove's dead," Sophia said flatly. "I put a bullet in him myself when he breached the farmhouse. One good thing from this nightmare?" The news landed with unexpected impact. Hargrove had been the face of their enemy for so long that his death should have felt like victory. Instead, it emphasized the pyrrhic nature of their resistance. Farms burned, friends dead, and for what they still had lost everything. "What now?" Chen asked the question they were all thinking. "We negotiate," Mai answered, "using our hostage to secure safe passage for any survivors." And then, the unspoken reality hung between them. There was no then, no future in Misty Creek Valley for any of them. Even with Vaughn as leverage, the best they could hope for was escape with their lives. Mai turned away, unable to face the truth in their eyes. She had led these people, inspired them to fight, and delivered them to destruction. The responsibility crushed her more thoroughly than any physical defeat. A sound from the cave entrance snapped her from her thoughts. All three raised weapons as a figure appeared silhouetted against the morning light. "Hello," called an unfamiliar voice. "Is anyone there? I'm unarmed." Mai signaled the others to maintain cover while she approached cautiously. "Identify yourself." "Marcus Wallace," the man replied. "Former federal judge. I've been tracking this conflict for weeks." Mai remained suspicious. Step forward slowly, hands visible. The man who emerged was tall and gaunt, with the bearing of someone once powerful, now reduced by circumstance. His clothes were travel-worn, but of quality material. Gray hair framed an intelligent face marked by bitterness. "How did you find us?" Mai demanded, rifle still raised. I've lived in these mountains for 2 years. Wallace replied, I know every cave system, every game trail, and I've been watching Vaughn's operation since it began. Chen joined his good arm, supporting his weight against the rock wall. Judge Marcus Wallace, I know the name. You presided over land claim disputes until I ruled against Vaughn Industries in a mining rights case. Wallace finished, after which I was removed from the bench on trumped-up corruption charges. My reputation destroyed, my family name. Disgraced. Why are you here? Mai asked bluntly. Because I've spent 2 years gathering evidence against Maxwell Vaughn, documenting his bribes to officials, his use of force against legitimate claim holders, his manipulation of railway contracts. Wallace's eyes gleamed with purpose. When I heard about the resistance in Misty Creek, I saw an opportunity to finally bring him to justice. You're a bit late, Sophia said bitterly from behind them. The resistance is crushed. Our homes are ashes. Wallace nodded solemnly. I saw the destruction, but I also saw something else. 23 surviving resistance members hiding in the eastern forests, and I have contacts in Helena waiting for my signal, including a federal prosecutor and a journalist from the Chicago Tribune. Hope flickered tentatively. What are you suggesting? Mai asked. A different kind of victory? Wallace replied, one won in courtrooms and newspapers rather than with rifles. I have the documentation, you have the testimony, and his gaze moved past them toward the cave interior. If I'm not mistaken, you have Maxwell Vaughn himself. A strange laugh escaped Mai, hollow yet genuine. We thought to use him as a hostage to negotiate our escape. You're proposing something far more ambitious. Justice. Wallace said simply, real justice, not just survival. Chen looked skeptical. Vaughn owns half the judges in the territory, but not all of them, and not the federal courts, not with the evidence I've accumulated. Wallace's determination was palpable. His investors are already nervous about delays in the railway project. A public scandal involving violence against American citizens would destroy him. When Mai studied Wallace carefully, weighing risk against opportunity, the judge might be delusional, seeking revenge through impossible means, or he might represent their last best hope for something beyond mere escape. If we do this, she said slowly, what guarantee do we have that Vaughn's men won't simply kill everyone while we're attempting to reach Helena? None. Wallace admitted, it's a gamble, but I have a plan to improve our odds considerably. As Wallace outlined his strategy, Mai felt something she had thought permanently extinguished. Genuine hope, not for restoration of what was lost, but for a reckoning that might prevent others from suffering Misty Creek's fate. She looked at Chen and Sophia, seeing the same cautious optimism in their eyes. They had lost the battle for their homes, but perhaps the war against Vaughn could still be won. We'll need to move quickly, Wallace concluded, before Vaughn's men locate us. Mai made her decision. I'll get our prisoner ready for travel. We leave in 20 minutes. As she moved deeper into the cave to retrieve Vaughn, Mai passed the small alcove where she had stored her few rescued possessions. Among them was Daniel's compass and her father's journal. She stopped briefly, touching these connections to the men who had shaped her life. I'm sorry, she whispered to Daniel's memory. I couldn't save our home, but I'll make sure your death wasn't meaningless. With renewed purpose, Mai continued into the darkness to face Maxwell Vaughn and whatever future lay beyond Misty Creek Valley. Night fell over the smoldering remains of Misty Creek Valley. Vaughn's mercenaries camped amid the destruction, celebrating victory with stolen liquor and self-congratulation. Without Hargrove's discipline, they had devolved into an occupying force more interested in looting than securing their conquests. Thomas Carter, now commanding after Hargrove's death, established headquarters in the undamaged portion of the Rivera farmhouse. His primary concern wasn't consolidating control of the valley, but locating his missing employer. Nothing, reported his lieutenant returning from another search patrol. No sign of Vaughn or his kidnappers. Carter's burn-scarred face twisted in frustration. They can't have gone far. Not with Vaughn as prisoner and the sheriff wounded. In the eastern passes, triple the patrols there and send riders to Helena. I want every lawman in the territory looking for them. The lieutenant hesitated. Sir, without Vaughn or Hargrove, what exactly is our status here? The question reflected growing uncertainty among the mercenaries. They had been hired by Vaughn Industries for a specific operation with promised payment upon completion. With Vaughn missing and Hargrove dead, command structure and compensation became worryingly unclear. Our status, Carter replied coldly, is that we hold this valley until Mr. Vaughn returns. Anyone suggesting otherwise will answer to me personally. Understood. The lieutenant nodded quickly. Yes, sir, and the prisoners. Keep them secure. They're bargaining chips if the kidnappers try to negotiate. 12 captured resistance members were held in the Rivera barn, surrounded by armed guards. Their future remained uncertain. Hostages, witnesses to be eliminated or simply forgotten. Casualties in a private war over land and resources. As darkness deepened, none of Vaughn's men noticed the shadowy figures moving through the forests surrounding the valley, systematically observing guard positions and patrol patterns. Judge Wallace's plan was in motion. 40 miles east, Mai guided their small party through mountain trails rarely traveled even by locals. Judge Wallace led the way, his knowledge of hidden passes proving invaluable. Sophia guarded their rear, while Chen helped manage their reluctant prisoner. Maxwell Vaughn had maintained remarkable composure throughout the journey, despite being bound and forced to travel difficult terrain on foot. His expensive suit was torn and soiled, his face scratched from low-hanging branches, but his demeanor remained calculated and controlled. You're making a grave mistake, he told Mai during a brief rest. My company has connections throughout the territorial government. You'll never reach a courtroom. You've ruled through fear for too long, Mayer replied, checking the bindings on his wrists. That ends now, Vaughn smiled thinly. Fear is merely efficient, Mrs. Thornwood. I could have bought the valley for triple its worth, but why overpay when the weak are so easily intimidated? My husband wasn't weak. No, Vaughn acknowledged he was principled. A far more dangerous failing. Mai studied him with a cold assessment. You admit ordering his death. I admit nothing, but I will offer you what I offered him, a place in my organization. Your skills are wasted defending worthless farmland, the same offer you made before having him killed. Business requires eliminating obstacles, Vaughn said with unsettling equanimity. Daniel chose opposition over cooperation. You're smarter than that, I think. Mai leaned closer, her voice dropping to ensure only Vaughn heard her next words. You're wrong about one thing. I'm not taking you to a courtroom first. I'm taking you to the exact spot where my husband died. And before this is over, you'll understand exactly what you took from me. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Vaughn's eyes. They continued through the night, avoiding main trails where Carter's patrols might search. By dawn, they had reached Wallace's hidden cabin, a Spartan refuge the former judge had established after his disgrace. We'll rest here today, Wallace announced, unlocking the weathered door. Carter's men won't search this far east yet. Inside the cabin was small but functional. Maps and documents covered one wall entirely, newspaper clippings, land surveys, and court transcripts, all connected by red string to a central photograph of Maxwell Vaughn. 2 years of investigation. Wallace explained, securing Vaughn to a sturdy chair. Every corrupt deal, every manipulated contract, every accident, befalling those who opposed him. Mai examined the wall with growing appreciation. This is comprehensive and inadmissible in most territorial courts. Vaughn interjected, his composure regained. Collected by a disgraced judge with a personal vendetta. Hardly compelling evidence. Wallace smiled grimly. That's why we need witnesses, living testimonies that can't be dismissed, and a forum beyond your influence. Chen eased himself onto a bench, grimacing as Sophia helped rebind his wounded shoulder. What exactly is your plan, Judge? The territorial papers won't touch this story. Not the territorial papers. Wallace agreed. James McKenna of the Chicago Tribune. He's been investigating railway land schemes for months. One telegram and he'll meet us in Helena with a federal prosecutor I still trust. Helena is crawling with Vaughn's men, Sophia pointed out. We won't go to Helena. Wallace replied, not directly. There's a telegraph office at Cooper Station, 20 miles north. From there, we can arrange to meet McKenna at Fort Harrison instead. Federal jurisdiction? Mai nodded slowly, and the survivors from the valley. If your messenger reached them with my instructions, they should be gathering at Blacktail Canyon. We'll rendezvous there tomorrow night. Outside, a distant rumble of thunder promised more challenges ahead. Mai moved to the window, studying the threatening sky. Someone should keep watch. Carter won't give up easily. I'll take first shift, Sophia volunteered, checking her rifle. As the others settled in, Mai found Wallace reviewing his documents. Will it be enough, she asked quietly, to truly bring him down? Wallace considered carefully. The evidence against Vaughn Industries is substantial. The personal culpability of Maxwell Vaughn himself. That's where we need your testimony and proof linking him directly to the violence. Mai touched her pocket where she carried Daniel's final note. I have something, but it's circumstantial at best. So, perhaps Vaughn himself can provide what we need. Wallace's gaze shifted to their prisoner, who was pretending not to listen. Men like him often keep trophies of their victories or insurance against their allies. The implication was clear. Somewhere among Vaughn's personal effects might be documentation that would seal his fate. But obtaining it meant returning to the very heart of danger, his private quarters in Misty Creek. The storm broke around midnight, sheets of rain lashing against the cabin. Mai sat beside the small fire, her rifle across her lap, watching Vaughn as he dozed fitfully in his restraints. Sophia and Chen slept nearby, exhaustion overcoming discomfort. Wallace had retreated to the far corner, organizing his evidence for presentation. A sharp crack outside, different from the thunder, brought Mai instantly alert. She extinguished the lantern with one quick movement, plunging the cabin into darkness, except for the fire's dim glow. Someone's out there, she whispered to Wallace, who had also sensed the disturbance. They waited in tense silence, listening. Another sound, a horse's soft whicker, quickly hushed. Mai moved silently to the window, peering through a gap in the shutters. Rain obscured her vision, but she could distinguish shapes moving in the darkness, at least 3 mounted men approaching cautiously. Carter's scouts, she concluded, returning to the others. They've tracked us somehow. Chen was awake now, his good hand on his pistol. How many, hurry? 3 visible, could be more. Wallace looked grim. This cabin has only one entrance. If they surround us, we need a diversion. May decided. She turned to Sophia. Wake up trouble. As Sophia roused, Mai outlined her plan quickly. I'll draw them away, get Vaughn to Cooper's station once it's clear. That's suicide, Chen protested. I'm the only one who can move quickly enough in this terrain. Mai countered, and the only one they want almost as much as Vaughn. Before further objections could be raised, she was gathering her minimal gear rifle ammunition. Daniel's compass. If I'm not at Blacktail Canyon by sunset tomorrow, don't wait. Sophia gripped her arm. This isn't just about justice anymore, is it? This is about Daniel. Mai held her gaze steadily. It's about finishing what we started. She slipped out the back window into the driving rain, immediately plastering herself against the cabin wall. The scouts had dismounted, now conferring in low voices barely audible above the storm. Mai circled wide, using the weather as cover, until she reached their horses, tethered nearby. With practiced efficiency, she spooked 2 of the animals, sending them crashing through the underbrush. The diversion worked perfectly. All 3 scouts turned toward the sound, giving Mai the opening to position herself behind them. She fired once into the air. Looking for me, she called immediately, moving from her position. It's the Thornwood woman. One scout shouted, Get her. Mai fired again from a different location, creating the impression of multiple defenders, then disappeared into the forest. The scouts pursued exactly as she'd intended, leaving the cabin temporarily clear. For 20 minutes, she led them on a winding chase through rain-slicked terrain, using superior knowledge of the landscape to maintain distance while keeping them focused on pursuit. When she was certain they were far enough from the cabin, she accelerated, putting genuine distance between them. By dawn, the rain had stopped, and Mai had lost her pursuers in the labyrinthine valleys east of Wallace's cabin. But she had also lost any chance of rejoining the others before they reached Cooper's station. Her path now took her in a different direction, west, back toward Misty Creek Valley, toward Daniel's final resting place, and toward whatever evidence might exist in Vaughn's quarters. Cooper's station consisted of little more than a trading post stables and the northernmost telegraph office in the territory. Judge Wallace led Chen, Sophia and their prisoner into the modest settlement shortly after noon, having traveled hard since escaping the cabin. "Keep Vaughn out of sight," Wallace instructed as they approached the telegraph office. "His face is too well known." Inside, the operator recognized Wallace immediately. "Judge thought you'd gone hermit for good." Not today, Ellis." Wallace slid a pre-written message across the counter. "This needs to reach James McKenna at the Chicago Tribune." Immediately, Ellis scanned the message, eyebrows rising. "This is explosive material, Judge." "Just send it, Ellis, and this one to Colonel Harrington at Fort Harrison." As the operator began transmitting, Wallace rejoined the others waiting with Vaughn behind the stables. "Messages sent," he reported. "Now we wait for confirmation." "Should show up to him." "How long?" Sophia asked, keeping her rifle trained casually on Vaughn. "Hours perhaps, depends on whether McKenna is at his desk." Chen looked uneasy. "Those scouts will have reported back by now. Carter will know we're heading north." "All the more reason to reach the fort quickly," Wallace agreed. "Once we're under federal protection, Vaughn's private army becomes a liability rather than an asset." Vaughn, who had remained sullenly silent throughout the journey, finally spoke. "You're all monumentally naive. Do you think a corrupt federal system that I've navigated for decades will suddenly turn against me on the word of a disgraced judge and a few displaced farmers?" "Not on our word alone," Wallace replied. "On evidence, documentation, sworn testimony." Vaughn smiled thinly. "Documentation can be destroyed, witnesses discredited or eliminated." Something in his tone, a confidence that transcended his current predicament, sent a chill through the group. "You've already sent orders," Chen realized, "before we captured you." "Business contingencies are essential," Vaughn replied, "particularly when engaging in contested acquisitions." Wallace's face hardened. "What have you done?" "Let's just say that certain sensitive records at my Helena office won't survive the day, and certain witnesses may find themselves facing unexpected challenges." Sophia stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. "He's bluffing, trying to demoralize us." "Perhaps," Wallace conceded, "but we can't take that chance." He turned to Chen. "You should go, take my horse and ride for Helena. Your badge might still mean something there." "And do what?" Chen demanded. "I'm one injured sheriff against Vaughn's entire operation." "Find McKenna if he's arrived. Warn him secure whatever evidence remains at Vaughn's office." Chen looked torn, glancing between his companions and the path northward. "Go," Sophia encouraged. "We'll manage Vaughn and reach the rendezvous. Those documents may be our only chance at real justice." After a moment's further hesitation, Chen nodded grimly. "I'll meet you at Blacktail Canyon with whatever I can salvage." As he mounted and rode north, Vaughn's satisfied expression confirmed their fears. His contingency plans were already in motion. My Thornwood crouched in the underbrush, overlooking what remained of Misty Creek Valley. Smoke still rose from several burned-out farms, including her own. At the Rivera property, Carter's men had established their headquarters, sentries patrolling a perimeter with military precision. From her vantage point, she could see prisoners being moved from the barn to a wagon, survivors of the resistance bound for some unknown fate. Her heart ached to intervene, but one woman against 30 armed men were impossible odds even for her skills. Instead, she focused on her objective. Vaughn's personal quarters had been established in the intact section of the River House, the same area Carter now occupied. Inside might be documentation linking Vaughn directly to the violence, the final evidence needed to ensure his conviction. Mai circled the property carefully, noting guard positions and patrol patterns. Security was tight but not impenetrable. The weakness came at shift change just before sunset, when the day guards grew careless and the night sentries were not yet fully alert. As dusk approached, she positioned herself near the orchard's edge where shadows would provide cover for her approach. When two guards stepped away for a smoke, leaving a momentary gap in their coverage, Mai moved quick, silent, practically invisible in the gathering darkness. She reached the house and slipped beneath the raised porch, listening to the floorboards creak above as men moved about inside. Conversations filtered down. Still no word on Vaughn. Carter's offering extra bounty for the Thornwood woman, prisoners to Helena at dawn. Mai waited until full dark, then eased herself through a partially open cellar window. The house's interior was dimly lit. Most activity centered in the front rooms where Carter conducted business. Vaughn's temporary quarters would be upstairs, likely the main bedroom, the only space suitable for a man of his ego. Moving with practiced stealth, Mai navigated the shadows to the rear staircase, freezing whenever floorboards threatened to betray her presence. The second floor was mercifully quieter, with only a single guard positioned at the hallway's end. She waited patiently until the guard's head nodded in momentary sleep, then glided past him to the master bedroom. The door was locked, but Mai's father had taught her many skills beyond shooting, including how to defeat simple pin tumbler locks. Inside Vaughn's temporary quarters were exactly as she'd expected. The best furnishings salvaged from throughout the valley, arranged to create an impression of luxury. Even in this frontier setting, his personal items were meticulously organized on the dresser. Silver brushes, a crystal decanter of whiskey correspondence in neat stacks. Mai searched quickly but thoroughly, knowing each passing minute increased her danger. Most documents were innocuous business correspondence, railway schedules, coal production estimates. Nothing incriminating. Then she found a small leather portfolio hidden in a false bottom of Vaughn's traveling desk. Inside lay exactly what they needed: detailed instructions to Hargrove regarding the removal of obstacles in Misty Creek Valley, with specific names listed for intimidation or elimination. Daniel's name appeared marked with a simple annotation: terminated 1882. Mai's hands trembled slightly as she read the cold confirmation of what she'd always known. She secured the portfolio inside her jacket and prepared to retreat when voices approached in the hallway. Carter and another man coming directly toward the bedroom. She glanced frantically around the room. The window offered the only escape, but opening it would create noise. Instead, Mai slid beneath the high four-poster bed seconds before the door opened. "Still need to finalize the property transfers," Carter was saying as he entered. "Even without Vaughn's signature, we have authorization to proceed." "And the prisoners?" asked the second man. "Leverage for now. If Vaughn isn't recovered within 3 days, they become liabilities." Mai remained motionless as Carter rummaged through the desk she had just searched inches from, discovering her presence. "The false bottom's disturbed," he said suddenly, his voice sharpening. "Someone's been here." The second man drew his pistol. "Recently?" "Very—" Carter moved toward the door. "Check the house and double the guards on the prisoners. If one rat found its way in, there may be others." The men departed, locking the door behind them. Mai exhaled slowly, then rolled from beneath the bed. Their exit had eliminated her planned escape route, but the locked door provided temporary safety while she considered alternatives. The window now represented her only option, despite the noise it would create. She eased it open carefully, wincing at each small creak. Outside, a narrow ledge offered precarious footing, with a steep drop to the ground below. Mai had just swung one leg over the sill when the doorknob rattled. Someone was returning. She slipped outside, fully pressing herself against the exterior wall as the bedroom door opened. Angry voices followed, then the sound of furniture being overturned in a comprehensive search. Balancing on the narrow ledge, Mai sidestepped carefully away from the window, working her way toward a trellis at the corner of the house. Behind her, a head poked out the window, one of Carter's men scanning the darkness. Mai froze, willing herself to invisibility. The searcher withdrew momentarily, then thrust a lantern out the window, illuminating the ledge. She had seconds before discovery. With no other option, Mai leaped for the trellis, catching it as the shout of alarm rose behind her. She scrambled downward as gunfire erupted, bullets splintering wood around her. Hitting the ground running, she darted for the orchard as the entire compound exploded into activity. "It's her, the Thornwood woman!" Someone shouted, "Don't let her escape!" Mai ran in a zigzag pattern, using darkness and terrain for cover, as bullets kicked up dirt around her. She reached the tree line as mounted pursuers organized behind her dogs, baying as they were released on her trail. For the next hour, she led her hunters on a desperate chase through familiar territory, using every trick her father had taught her to confuse the dogs and mislead the riders. Eventually, she doubled back toward the creek, wading upstream to eliminate her scent trail, before finding temporary shelter in a hollow sycamore she and Daniel had once picnicked beside in happier times. As dawn brightened the eastern sky, Maya assessed her situation. She had the evidence-damning conclusive proof of Vaughn's direct involvement in murder and intimidation. But Carter's forces controlled the valley with prisoners who would pay the price for her actions. The planned rendezvous at Blacktail Canyon was still possible, but would require circling wide around Carter's patrols. And first she had a promise to keep to herself and to Daniel's memory. With grim determination, Mai set out for Dead Man's Ravine, the place where Daniel had accidentally fallen to his death 3 years earlier. The place where Maxwell Vaughn would finally face justice for his crimes. Blacktail Canyon lay shrouded in morning mist as Judge Wallace and Sophia arrived with their prisoner. The narrow passage between sheer rock walls provided natural protection, with only one approach to defend 23 survivors. Sophia counted as they joined the gathered remnants of Misty Creek's resistance. Plus us. Wallace nodded grimly. More than I expected, fewer than I hoped. Among the survivors, Peterson's wife embraced Sophia tearfully. Joseph and the boy, she asked. Sophia shook her head slightly. They died defending us, fighting to the last. Nearby children huddled close to adults, their faces reflecting confusion and fear. These were the human cost of Vaughn's ambition. Families shattered homes, destroyed futures. Uncertain, Wallace addressed the gathered survivors, explaining their situation with judicial precision. We have evidence against Vaughn Industries sufficient to bring federal charges. We have Vaughn himself in custody. What we need now is your testimony. Each of you is a witness to the systematic violence employed against legitimate landowners. Testimony won't rebuild our homes. Someone objected. No. Wallace agreed, but it may prevent others from suffering the same fate. And successful prosecution will likely result in substantial damages awarded. Vaughn, seated under guard nearby, maintained his composure despite increasingly hostile glances from the survivors. When do we leave for Fort Harrison? Sophia asked. We wait for Chen. Wallace replied, and Mai if she rejoins us no later than sunset. As the day progressed, tension mounted. Mai had not appeared, nor had Chen returned from his mission to Helena. Lookouts reported increased activity in the valley below, search parties systematically combing the surrounding forests. They're getting closer, Sophia reported after checking with the perimeter guards. We need to move soon. Wallace checked his pocket watch for the dozenth time. 1 more hour. The decision was rendered moot by the sudden arrival of a blood-spattered rider on an exhausted horse. Sheriff Chen, his wounded shoulder freshly bandaged, his expression grim. Ambush! He gasped as they helped him dismount. Henderson past Carter's men knew we were coming. Wallace steadied him. Did you reach Helena McKenna? Chen shook his head. McKenna's dead, shot in his hotel room before I arrived. He pulled a crumpled telegram from his pocket. Found this in his effects. Fort Harrison knows we're coming, but they can't send troops this far without federal authorization. And the documents at Vaughn's office. Gone fire reported just hours before I arrived. Nothing salvageable. The news hit like a physical blow. Their carefully constructed case was collapsing. Without McKenna's journalistic platform, without the supporting documentation from Vaughn's Helena office, their chances of successful prosecution diminished dramatically. Vaughn's self-satisfied expression confirmed what they all realized. His contingency plans had been comprehensive and effective. We still have him, Sophia said, gesturing to their prisoner. And Wallace's evidence, it's not over. It was over before it began, Vaughn replied smoothly. You never understood what you were fighting, Mrs. Rivera. Not just me, but a system. My system. A tense silence followed, broken by a lookout's urgent call. Riders approaching from the south. At least 15. Carter. Chen concluded, they must have followed my trail. The canyon erupted into activity as parents gathered children. The elderly were helped to horses, and the few armed defenders prepared to cover their retreat. There's another exit, Wallace said urgently. A game trail through the northern cliff face. Difficult but passable. We can still reach the fort if we move now. Go, Sophia urged the survivors. Take Vaughn Chen, and I will hold them off. No, Wallace countered. Too risky to split up. We all go now. As the argument continued, a single rifle shot echoed through the canyon, not from the approaching riders, but from the cliffs above. All eyes turned upward. My Thornwood stood on the ridgeline, her Whitworth rifle gleaming in the afternoon sun. Behind her six-armed figures appeared men from outlying homesteads who had escaped the initial assault on the valley. Move to the north exit, Mai called down. We'll cover you from up here. Relief swept through the survivors as they organized their retreat. Mai and her companions took positions along the ridge, creating interlocking fields of fire covering the canyon's southern approach. Carter's men arrived to find a seemingly abandoned camp, little realizing they rode directly into a prepared kill zone. When they reached the center of the canyon, Mai gave the signal. Coordinated rifle fire erupted from multiple positions, creating confusion and panic among the attackers. Fall back, Carter ordered as horses reared and men sought cover that didn't exist in the canyon's exposed floor. By the time Carter regrouped his forces for a proper assault, the survivors were well away, moving steadily toward the northern exit. With Vaughn securely in their midst, Mai and her companions maintained covering fire until ammunition ran low, then executed a fighting retreat along the ridgeline to rejoin the main group. The reunion was brief but emotional. Mai handed Wallace the leather portfolio she'd recovered from Vaughn's quarters. Direct evidence, she said simply. Orders for intimidation, destruction of property and murder, including Daniel's. Wallace examined the documents with growing appreciation. This is irrefutable. With these in my collected evidence, we don't need the Helena documents. Vaughn's composure finally cracked. Those are forgeries fabricated by a woman with a vendetta against me. In your own hand, Mai countered, on your personalized stationery, with your seal. And for the first time, genuine fear flickered in Vaughn's eyes. We need to keep moving, Chen interrupted. Carter won't give up that easily. The group continued northward through increasingly difficult terrain. Progress was slow, hampered by the elderly and children among them. By nightfall, they had covered less than half the distance to Fort Harrison. We'll never outrun them at this pace, Mai observed as they established a cold camp in a sheltered draw. We don't need to reach the fort, Wallace replied. Just get close enough for a patrol to find us. I included coordinates in my telegram to Colonel Harrington. Chen looked skeptical. If they're even looking for us. The night passed uneasily with rotating watches, maintaining vigilance. Mai found herself seated beside Vaughn during her shift, the architect of so much suffering now reduced to a bound prisoner, awaiting justice. Quite a reversal of fortune, Vaughn observed quietly. The all-powerful businessman at the mercy of a farmer's widow. Justice often comes from unexpected sources, Mai replied. Is that what this is? Justice? Vaughn leaned closer. Or revenge for your husband? Both, perhaps? Vaughn studied her with calculated interest. You know, Mrs. Thornwood, I offered Daniel a position with my company before his unfortunate accident. He refused on moral grounds, much as you did, admirable but impractical. He saw through you. Highness, he saw opportunity and rejected it. Vaughn corrected. Just as you're doing now, even with my arrest, there will be no restoration. Your home is gone. Your neighbors scattered, your future uncertain. Some things matter more than property or certainty. Principles. Vaughn scoffed. Cold comfort on winter nights. Mai's expression remained impassive, but her eyes held a quiet strength that finally silenced him. Dawn revealed fresh challenges. Carter's men had picked up their trail. Despite precautions, the survivors accelerated their pace, but the pursuit gained ground steadily throughout the morning. We need another solution, Mai told Wallace and Chen as they paused at a stream crossing. The fort is still 10 miles away. We'll never make it with the children and elderly. Chen nodded grimly. A defensive position, then make our stand where we choose rather than where they force us. A diversion. Mai suggested something to split their forces. The solution came unexpectedly from Vaughn himself. I can end this, he said suddenly. A truce negotiations. All three regarded him skeptically. Why would you help us now? Wallace demanded self-preservation. Vaughn replied frankly, I've had time to reconsider my position. Those documents you recovered are indeed damaging. A public trial would be problematic for my interests. Siwi, you're proposing a deal. Chen realized a mutually beneficial arrangement. I call off Carter's men. You return my portfolio of documents. We all proceed to Fort Harrison, where I willingly surrender to federal authorities on lesser charges. Land fraud, perhaps. Bribery of officials, nothing involving violence. Absolutely not, Mai said firmly. Daniel deserves justice. Daniel is dead, Vaughn countered coldly. But 24 survivors, including children, are very much alive and in danger. Are their lives worth your vengeance, Mrs. Thornwood? The question struck home with uncomfortable force. Mai looked toward the exhausted survivors resting nearby families who had already lost everything except their lives. How would this work? Wallace asked, ignoring Mai's glare. Simple, I write orders for Carter to withdraw. One of your people delivers it under white flag. I keep most of the incriminating documents as insurance until we reach federal jurisdiction. And we're supposed to trust you, Chen asked incredulously. Trust my self-interest. Vaughn replied, a negotiated surrender preserves some of my assets and reputation. A public trial involving violence against settlers would destroy both. The debate continued in hushed, urgent tones. Mai remained adamantly opposed, but Wallace saw merit in avoiding further bloodshed. Chen was torn between his duty to protect the survivors and his commitment to justice. In the end, pragmatism prevailed. Vaughn drafted orders for Carter's withdrawal, which Sophia volunteered to deliver under flag of truce. Mai insisted on keeping the most damning documents, those directly linking Vaughn to Daniel's death, while returning the less specific directives. If Carter disobeys or attempts to detain Mrs. Rivera, Wallace warned Vaughn, the arrangement is void. All documents go to federal authorities. Carter follows orders. Vaughn replied confidently, especially when they align with his instinct for self-preservation. As Sophia departed on her dangerous mission, Mai pulled her aside briefly. Be careful, this may be another of his schemes. I know, Sophia answered grimly, but what choice do we have? The hours of waiting that followed stretched nerves to breaking point. When Sophia finally returned, her expression was unreadable. Carter accepted the terms. She reported reluctantly, but he's withdrawing his men as we speak. Relief swept through the survivors, but Mai remained suspicious. Just like that, he's abandoning the pursuit. He's a mercenary, Sophia replied. Without Vaughn's backing, there's no profit in continuing and considerable risk if federal troops become involved. The arrangement held by dust scouts reported no sign of pursuit as the survivors continued their journey northward. The night passed without incident, and by mid-morning of the following day, they spotted cavalry uniforms on the horizon, a patrol from Fort Harrison responding to Wallace's telegram. Colonel Harrington himself led the detachment, his weathered face registering shock at the condition of the refugees. Judge Wallace, he greeted formally. Your message indicated trouble, but this, he gestured to the exhausted families. These people have been systematically terrorized, Colonel. Wallace replied, their homes destroyed, their lands, seized through violence and intimidation. By whose authority? Wallace gestured to Vaughn, who maintained dignified composure, despite his circumstances. Maxwell Vaughn of Vaughn Industries. We have documentation of his direct involvement in multiple crimes, including murder. Harrington's posture stiffened. Even at this remote outpost, Vaughn's name and influence were well known. Serious accusations, the colonel observed cautiously. With evidence to match, Wallace assured him, producing his collected documentation. I request federal custody for Mr. Vaughn and protection for these witnesses pending formal charges. Harrington hesitated only briefly before nodding. Granted, we'll escort everyone to the fort immediately. As the column organized for return to Fort Harrison, Mai found herself riding alongside Sophia and Chen. Is it really over? Sophia wondered aloud. The fighting, perhaps. Chen replied, the legal battle is just beginning. Mai remained silent, watching Vaughn ride ahead under guard. She had fulfilled her promise to Daniel, his killer would face justice. Yet the victory felt hollow. Homes destroyed, lives shattered, a community scattered to the winds. Even with Vaughn's eventual conviction, what real justice could there be for such comprehensive loss? The answer came unexpectedly 3 days later, as the survivors gathered in Colonel Harrington's office at Fort Harrison. A telegram had arrived from the territorial governor responding to the growing scandal as news of Misty Creek's destruction spread through official channels. The governor has authorized emergency relief for all displaced residents, Harrington announced. And temporary suspension of Vaughn Industries land claims pending federal investigation. Temporary, someone objected. Those are our homes. There's more. Harrington continued. The Territorial Land Office has agreed to grant new homestead rights in Misty Creek Valley to the original owners. When rebuilding becomes possible, the land remains yours. A murmur of surprised hope moved through the group. It wasn't restoration, nothing could truly restore what had been lost, but it was a beginning, a chance to reclaim something they believed forever destroyed. Later that evening, Mai stood alone on the fort's eastern wall, watching darkness settle over the distant mountains that sheltered Misty Creek Valley. Chen found her there, his arm still in a sling, but healing well. They're talking about starting back in spring, he said, joining her at the wall. Rebuilding together with federal troops providing security until Vaughn's case concludes. Will you go with them? Mai asked. My badge still means something. More now perhaps than before. Chen studied her profile in the fading light. What about you? Mai remained silent for a long moment. I don't know, Daniel's gone. Our home is ashes. What am I returning to? The future, maybe something new. Perhaps. They stood in companionable silence until Sophia joined them, bringing news from Judge Wallace. Federal prosecutors have formally charged Vaughn, she reported. The evidence is overwhelming. Even with his connections, conviction seems certain. And his empire, Chen asked, crumbling investors withdrawing railway contracts suspended. His board of directors has already voted to remove him. The justice they had sought was materializing, yet Mai felt strangely detached from it. She had spent 3 years consumed by grief and suspicion, then weeks focused entirely on survival and vengeance. With both finally achieved purpose, suddenly seemed elusive. The valley needs leadership, Sophia said, seeming to read her thoughts. People who understand not just what was lost, but how to rebuild differently, stronger. I'm no leader, Mai protested. You led us against Vaughn. Chen pointed out, you instilled courage when there was only fear. That was war. Rebuilding is different. Is it? Sophia challenged. Both require vision, determination, the ability to see possibilities where others see only obstacles. Mai turned from the wall, facing her friends directly. Are you asking me to return to Misty Creek? We're asking you to help create something new there, Chen clarified. Not just restored farms, but a true community, one that stands together against whatever comes next. The proposition hung in the air between them, unexpected yet somehow inevitable. Mai thought of Daniel, not his death now, but his life, his dreams for the valley, his belief in building something meaningful together. I need time, she said finally. Of course, Sophia agreed. But not too much. Spring comes quickly in Montana. As they departed, leaving her alone with her thoughts, Mai realized something had shifted within her. The burning need for vengeance that had driven her for so long had been replaced by something quieter but equally powerful, the possibility of creation rather than retribution. In the weeks that followed, as Vaughn's case proceeded through federal court and plans for rebuilding Misty Creek developed, Mai found herself increasingly involved in both processes. Her testimony proved crucial in securing Vaughn's conviction on multiple counts, including conspiracy to commit murder. The sentencing, when it came, provided formal justice, 20 years in federal prison dissolution of his control over Vaughn Industries, and substantial financial restitution to the residents of Misty Creek Valley. On the courthouse steps afterward, Mai stood with Wallace, Chen, and Sophia, the unlikely allies who had toppled an empire built on corruption and violence. It's done, Wallace said, satisfaction evident in his voice. 3 years of investigation finally vindicated. As justice prevailed, Chen agreed, adjusting his badge recently reinstated with formal commendation. Sophia smiled briefly. Justice and stubborn determination. Mai remained silent, watching Vaughn being led to a prison transport. He caught her eye briefly, his former arrogance replaced by cold hatred. She met his gaze steadily, then deliberately turned away, denying him even the satisfaction of her continued attention. "What now?" Wallace asked as they descended the courthouse steps together. Mai looked westward toward distant mountains in the valley beyond. "Spring planting," she said simply. "There's much to rebuild." Chobernaim, Aitanoam. Misty Creek Valley awakened to new life as winter released its grip. Where burned homesteads had stood fresh, timber rose in carefully planned structures. Fields were cleared and prepared for planting. A sense of purpose united the returning families, transforming individual tragedy into collective determination. At the center of this renewal stood Mai Thornwood, working alongside her neighbors from dawn until dusk. Her own cabin had been among the first rebuilt, smaller than before, but sturdier, with a covered porch where she often sat in the evenings, watching the valley's transformation. Today found her at the newly established schoolhouse, teaching a different kind of lesson than reading or arithmetic. A dozen women, Sophia Rivera among them, listened attentively as Mai demonstrated proper shooting stance. "Breathe naturally," she instructed, adjusting Sophia's grip on the rifle. "Don't hold your breath. Fire between heartbeats for maximum stability." The women practiced diligently, their determination evident. These were not recreational shooters, but survivors committed to ensuring they would never again be victimized by those who mistook gender for weakness. Sheriff Chen observed from horseback nearby, a smile touching his usually solemn features. "Creating your own militia, Mrs. Thornwood." "Creating preparedness," Mai corrected, walking over to him. "Is that a problem, Sheriff?" "Not at all. In fact, the territorial governor has officially recognized Misty Creek's home guard. Peterson's wife is now captain." "Peterson officially?" Mai raised an eyebrow in surprise. "That's progressive." "The world changes sometimes faster after being shaken." Chen handed her an envelope. "This came for you from Helena." Mai opened it, scanning the contents quickly. "The final disposition of Vaughn Industries' assets. The railway will proceed, but under new ownership and with fair compensation to all landowners for right-of-way access." "Progress," Chen observed. "Different from what Daniel originally envisioned, but perhaps better in some ways." Mai nodded slowly. "He wanted connection to the wider world, economic opportunity for the valley. This achieves that without the corruption." As she continued her lesson with the women, Mai reflected on the changes 6 months had brought. Misty Creek Valley was not simply being restored, but transformed. The isolated homesteads of before had given way to a true community with mutual defense arrangements, shared resources, and collective planning. The newly formed town council, with Mai reluctantly serving as its first leader, had established regulations ensuring no single interest could again dominate the valley. Land ownership was protected by multi-layered legal safeguards developed with Judge Wallace's assistance. That evening, as spring twilight lengthened across the valley, Mai sat on her porch with Sophia and Chen, sharing a quiet meal after the day's labor. "The Montgomery family arrived today," Chen reported. "That makes 28 households returned." "More than I expected," Sophia admitted. "After everything that happened, people are drawn to strength." Mai observed, "to communities that defend their own." The conversation drifted to practical matters, crops to be planted, supplies needed from Helena, the progress of rebuilding. Yet beneath the everyday concerns ran a deeper current of shared purpose that had been forged in resistance and tempered in renewal. As darkness fell, Chen departed for his evening rounds. Sophia lingered, studying Mai with thoughtful eyes. "You've changed," she said. Finally, Mai looked up questioningly. "When we met, you were consumed by vengeance." Sophia clarified, "Every action, every decision focused on bringing Vaughn to justice for Daniel's death. And now you're building something, not just a home or a community, but a future." Mai considered this assessment. "Perhaps Daniel's death no longer defines me," she acknowledged, "but it shaped me, made this possible." "Shanam, would he be proud of what you've accomplished here?" Mai gazed across the valley where lanterns now glowed from rebuilt homes against the gathering night. New life rising from destruction, strength emerging from vulnerability, community born from isolated suffering. "Yes," she said softly. "I think he would." Later, alone on her porch, Mai removed Daniel's compass from her pocket, the one possession she had saved above all others during their flight from the valley. Its needle still pointed true north, unwavering, despite all that had changed around it. Like the compass, Mai had found her own true direction, not in the past's vengeance, but in the future's creation. The ghosts of Misty Creek Valley would always remain, but now they shared space with living dreams and renewed purpose. As she had once been guided by her father's teachings through war's darkness, and later by Daniel's love through grief's isolation, Mai now found herself guided by something equally powerful, but uniquely her own, the vision of what this valley and its people could become. She tucked the compass away and stepped inside, closing the door against the night. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more opportunities to build rather than destroy. Misty Creek Valley was rising again, different but stronger than before. In Mai, Thornwood, no longer defined solely by loss and vengeance, would rise with it.